Alright, okay, good evening everyone. Okay, welcome to today's session over here. So as usual, what we're going to be doing is to walk you through the market, okay, and very quickly we'll take a look at some of the questions, answer them. Okay, if you have any, just put it into the chat, and then we'll do a quick closing from there, okay? Now, at the start of the week, we'll always like to take a look at the overall events for the week so that we can keep an eye on, what are some events to take note of, what are some of the volatility that we may need to be a little bit careful, okay, throughout the week. So of course, we are transiting into the very first week of the month in October. Okay, so if you're familiar with it, we always have our NFP on the first Friday of the month. So this week is gonna be that as well. Okay. Now today we don't really have much. Later on we do have a little bit of the US PMI data, but again I don't think that's gonna be very significant. Okay, not too much of a concern over there. Tuesday we have the Australia cash rate and of course the rate statement. Okay, so do take note if let's say you are looking at Australia related instruments and currencies, then tomorrow, okay, just be aware in the morning we do have that. Okay, then following that on Wednesday we have the RBNZ. Now over here, the current expectation is we do not expect, okay, the respective central banks to be changing its interest rate. They are likely going to maintain. Of course, if there's any kind of a surprise element, if RBA kind of hike rates or RBNZ decides to hike rates, then of course that would create some bullish momentum, okay, for the Aussie, of course, and the New Zealand, right, depending on what happens. Okay, and then on Friday is where we're gonna get our usual NFP, and this month here is where we're also gonna be having the Canadian labor market together with NFP, right? So some months we're gonna have it together, some months we'll have like NFP first, and then next Friday is where we're gonna get the Canadian labor market. Okay, but this month here is where we're gonna have it together. So if you're looking at news trading approach, okay, which one can kind of cover it before, right? How we can catch like short-term volatility from news releases. Friday here will be crucial because you'll be able to look out for Canadian related pairs as well as the dollar related pairs for the news trade. Okay, and most of the times, we do get some nice little move in terms of like surprise element volatility, especially on the Canadian side of things, right? NFP is not really that straightforward in the recent times, but Canadian labor market data is where you get some nice little, straightforward move. Okay, so that sums up the events for the week. Okay, of course, midweek is where the Asian currencies like Aussie and New Zealand, and then going into Fridays where we have Canadian and the US dollar. Okay. Good. So with that said, let's take a look at some of the technical analysis portion over here. We're gonna start off with the dollar index. Okay. Now, last Friday we did get the dollar index coming down, quite little impulsive move. But as of today, with Monday market movement, sometimes it can be what we call a fake move. Okay, because Monday usually is quiet. Usually, the move that happens on Monday are not very genuine. Okay, now what I mean by that is, if today you see the market goes up, it doesn't mean that, the market will continue to go higher moving forward, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, right? Most of the time, it's a fake move, right? So if today the market went up, there's a good chance tomorrow the market may come back down, okay? So every time you look at movement on Monday, you just want to be a little bit more patient, I would say, okay? And don't get pulled in into any specific trade direction just because of a Monday move, okay? So that's my, I would say, observation experience looking at the market, going from Monday to Tuesday, right? So you look at dollar index. Today we did get a little impulsive pushback, okay? Kind of recover most of what we see on Friday's drop, but because we're in a Monday market, I'm not overly concerned about that. I would again be very patient, and let the market play out a little bit more and see how we're gonna look. I mean, we're going to see how the market is going to develop, moving forward tomorrow or Wednesday. Okay. Now, as of now, okay, depending, of course, moving forward from here, how the market is going to develop. As I mentioned, right, the Monday market can be a fake move. If tomorrow we kind of get a drop back down pretty fast and impulsive in nature, right? Sorry, my mistake. Okay, if we kind of get a drop back down pretty fast next trading session, which is tomorrow, then we'll still be expecting some kind of a pullback, potentially towards 50 or 618 retracement, or even lower to retest where the previous wave 4 structure is. Okay, so today development of price doesn't really give us any clue or setup at the moment. Basically, this is just what we say a mini V shape. Okay, and often we see a structure like that. We see a pattern combination of a mini V shape. My suggestion is always just be neutral, just be patient, give the market more time to develop so that it can show you what it wants to turn into, right? Where it wants to go. Okay. So overall, dollar index is not really clear right now. And you probably just want to be a little bit neutral, okay? And having said that, of course, euro dollar is going to be similar here as well. The pullback to the downside quite impulsive today. Okay, so we want to be just a little bit more patient and see how the market is going to develop around this zone for now. Okay, so euro dollar, GBP USD kind of similar. You can see basically the directional bias that we have right now is neutral. Okay, and we just want to give it more time for the market to really develop into something clearer before we kind of commit to it, right? So the major pairs like euro dollar, pound dollar, and even Aussie dollar right now, okay, my take is just be a little bit patient, right, with the major pairs. Now Aussie dollar, we do have the RBA rate statement tomorrow, okay. Now what can turn into from here is, of course, this can go back up, perhaps, with the RBA statement, and then coming back down. If we can still get a structure like that, then we're still looking at a bullish momentum after that. Okay, we're still looking at bullish setups. But of course, we want to wait for three-wave development, right? So from Elliott Wave perspective, after we get an impulsive move, we don't jump in on the trade immediately. We always wait for a corrective combination to give us what we call a buy setup, right? And the corrective structure is always where we need to just be patient. We need to give it sufficient time to develop into the pattern to prove to us that indeed that's a correction, and therefore the chances and the probability of it continue higher is there, and therefore we don't, then only then we do commit to the buy trade, right? So right now, you just be patient, right? So some of these major pairs, basically you just need to be waiting, okay? And that's part of the trading game, right? You always want to wait for the setup to come to you, and if you don't see the setup that you want, you basically just remain patient, remain neutral, and being focused while you're waiting, okay? It's not about every day having to execute something, but the idea here is you need to be very clear what you want to see, wait for the market to give you that setup, and when you get the setup, okay, and that's where you pull the trigger, right? So major pairs like this, just be patient. Okay, dollar Canadian, we are expecting some kind of a crawl structure here, right? So if you can get a H1 crawl, but obviously right now with that push up, we don't get a crawl, right? So some of this here, we probably need to do a little bit of a update. Now to me, Aussie dollar, pound dollar, and euro dollar, not much of an update. We'll just give it some time to see how it goes. Initially on dollar Canadian, we were expecting a crawl so that we can get a sell. We don't get it. We instead get a very, very impulsive move to the upside right now. Okay, I think the Canadian is weakening. Okay, so if you take a look at, okay, so I only have dollar CAD here, but let me just very, very quickly show you, something like euro CAD. Okay, so you can see the euro CAD is also pushing out, right? If you take a look at pound CAD, likely is also pushing up. Odd CAD also pushing up. Okay, so we can then know, of course, primarily the movement coming from this move is Canadian weakness. Okay, So with that impulsive move, we definitely need to update our view a little bit. Okay, and of course, how I'm gonna update this here is we're likely gonna change this to potentially wave 4. This will be our wave 3 in yellow, right? So from the bottom 1, 2, 3, 4, and then likely we're developing wave 5. Okay, now the reason for that is because this is really impulsive, right? Our initial expectation is for this to do a corrective pullback. Okay, if this is going to be wave 5, right, then obviously that will be the top, and this will be an impulse and then correction, and we'll expect one drop. So that's why we're looking at that zone and see if we can get a crawl. Now we don't get a crawl, but instead we get an impulsive move. So that can paint us a slightly different pattern. Okay, and we'll quickly need to adapt. Okay, what's the next possible structure? So over here we're looking at potentially a wave 5 that may go all the way back towards 1.3788, right? And what we're looking at from here on is that any form of a corrective pullback from here, we can start to look for a buy trade opportunity, right? Of course, this can push up a little bit before that correction down, and internally this can be developing, right? Okay, so that's where we need to, I use the word being adaptive, and we evolve, according to how the market is updating us, right? Every time the market develops, it gives us a little bit more information, right? So this one here, I'll change it to short-term bullish, right? So you need to be very clear, like, what you need to see, right? So you can see over here in the morning, we're basically looking for a H1 crawl, right? A low time frame crawl structure to develop around the area. We didn't really get it. We get an impulsive move. So that's not what we want. Okay, and the market has kind of informed us that, okay, it's likely going to develop into another structure. It's likely going to develop into another pattern. So we update our analysis along the way, right? So from here on, what we'll be seeing is, okay, so I kind of type out, what's my thought process, right? So short term, we can expect a 5-wave development. Right, so then this would be our updated thought process, right? Of course, it's not telling us to go and buy it immediately, as I mentioned, right? We always need to have that impulsive move, following that a corrective pullback before we commit to the buy trade. Okay, yeah. So that's something that you can see how I tend to update the analysis sometimes depending on what the market is telling us right now. And most of the time, I'll look at the market 2 times a day, right? One in the morning where I prepare all my reports, my trade plans, and things like that. And then in the evening, like now, okay, it's usually where I do quite a bit of a sharing and things like that, and therefore, it allows me to have the opportunity to update the charts whenever necessary, right? So once in the morning, and once in the evening, right? So that's the routine and process that I have. Okay. Dollar yen over here, we're basically still bullish bias. Nothing has changed. There's a very good possibility that we're going to see a bit more upside. But going into next year, right? So I'm actually a little bit longer term. When I look at the dollar yen here, something that I'll be very, very interested going into next year is to observe how price is going to react at the top of this channel, right? There's a good possibility we're going to see a major, huge drop. Not 100% obviously, okay, but there is that possibility of that happening. Now there are many, different reasons and potential catalysts that can cause that. Perhaps Bank of Japan intervention because of the weakness of the yen. And we may get a fundamental deviation between the Fed and the Bank of Japan as well, where the Fed may start considering cutting rates, and Bank of Japan may consider hiking rates a little bit, right, bringing it up a little bit, or even abandoning its YCC policy and stuff like that. So We may potentially get something like that, okay, from a fundamental perspective, but of course from a technical point of view, we do have this very significant high as well. And of course, we need to be adaptive to what the market is telling us. But at the moment, my primary projection when it comes towards this top here, I'll be very, very keen to see if we can write a major move down, right? And if that's going to be the case, I think that will be a very, very solid opportunity that I would say you definitely want to focus on as well, okay? But coming back to, week to week short term, I think there's still a little bit more upside for dollar yen, okay? Gold here, last week we're looking at that move to the downside. We kind of hit that area right now, right? So kind of came into this territory, which potentially is completing a 5-wave structure. We kind of see a little bit of a divergence building up right now. Okay, so what I would suggest is not to be selling gold already, but to start focusing, we're entering that key zone, right? We have like key structure completed as well over here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 internally. And then from a bigger scale perspective, okay, we also have this as a 3-wave move here. And then of course, all the way from the top here, potentially completed that as well. Okay. So the suggestion on gold is to look out for a crawl. Okay. If we can get a crawl, we'll get a buy setup, or if we can get a V shape, we'll wait for a correction to get a buy setup. Okay. Now the buy trade can be a short-term buy to trade the not the entire reversal, but the short-term buy will be trading the retracement. But at the same time, it can also be trading a major reversal, right? So if you kind of take a look at the higher time frame, okay, this may have completed this corrective structure over here for a major move back to the top, right? So that's another possibility, right? So for gold, definitely I want to keep an eye on, can I get a potential buy setup around this zone, okay? So one of the buy setup obviously is a crawl, okay? And a crawl structure essentially is, kind of a wedge, a diagonal. And ideally we get some kind of a confirmation from RSI, okay, and then we'll have a simple breakout trade. Okay, that's happening on a H1, right? So gold here is definitely one of the primary focus. You can see it's tagged, right? So basically, it's definitely one of the primary focus. I would say opportunity for the week. Okay, of course, dollar cat was this morning. Okay, because I think just now we mentioned, right, once it crawled, we didn't get it. So I may take the focus off dollar Canadian and really focus on the gold trade potential moving into the week. Okay? Crude oil kind of similar to some of the major pairs like euro and pound. Okay, we'll probably need to wait a little bit more and see how the market is developed. So right now, really nothing much, right? Leave that there. S&P is something that I'll be interested to pay very close attention this week here as well. We did complete the 3-wave move, and of course internally a 5 here. Okay, we do have the RSI divergence here as well. Okay, and of course we can't get a very nice little decent reaction. Right now we're basically waiting for a corrective pullback, and we'll look for the buy, right? So again, Monday market is slow. Okay, it can be a fake move, okay? But right now what we're seeing is, seems like we're getting something like that, right? So what can happen over here is this may come down a little bit, and this will start to go something like this. And of course, if we can get a break, of this corrective structure, then that will give us a little bit more confirmation that perhaps price is ready to get higher, right? So this one here, the bias is definitely upside. And we'll definitely focus on the buy with the potential target, back at the top of the channel. And of course, if the market is able to break through on that, perfect. Okay, you definitely want to ride this long term, right? Anyway, equities market fundamentally is gonna go up. Okay, so that's an S&P, right? GBP, JPY, I'm actually quite interested to pay a little bit more attention on this, okay, but I think we'll likely need to be giving this a little bit more time, right? Because you can look at what I'm expecting is for the market to come back down a little bit, it needs to go back up correctively. Then that would be my sell opportunity, right? So rough estimation, it may not be a trade this week. Okay, it may be a trade maybe next week. Simply because we need this to develop and it takes time. Okay, yeah. So pound yen is something of interest, but timing wise, we just need to wait a little bit more. Okay. Euro pound, we're looking at upside here to complete the 5-wave structure, but I don't trade the euro pound simply because the characteristics and the nature of euro pound is very, very choppy, right? And that's not something I really like. So you can see, right, even if it's going up, it can be really choppy. Okay, and that's how euro pound works. Okay, that's how some of the cross pair like euro pound, Aussie, Kiwi, chef yen, that's often how this different cross pair works. So yeah, okay, we are bullish bias, but I personally don't trade the euro pound. Okay, Aussie yen is coming down pretty sharp, so we'll kind of get a V. Okay, I think this one is quite clear and straightforward. We're definitely expecting a little bit more downside, but we'll just want to wait for a corrective pullback. Okay, oftentimes we want to see a clear 3-wave structure, and that will give us our sell. Okay, so I think Aussie yen, potentially we may get something maybe closer towards the end of the week, of course, depending on how this pullback corrective structure is going to develop, right? So you can see here, right, price may be developing a pullback. Short term, if you can get a corrective pullback, right, a corrective structure, we have a sell opportunity with primary this target. Of course, it can go lower than that, right? So this one here, you want to wait for that pullback. Okay. Pound Australia, very nice little structure, you know, completing the 1618. You know, we have the divergence built in a little bit over here from this low all the way there. So we're expecting a decent kind of pullback from here, and of course short term we can look for the buy, right? So what you can do is you can go down to the hourly and of course wait for a buy structure that's relevant to you, right? So for me, we have an impulse. If you can get a corrective pullback, great, that will be a buy trade setup. Okay. If you're familiar with patterns, you might even look at this as a potential, you know, kind of inverse head and shoulder. And then that's also a reversal pattern, right? Okay, so pound Australia, definitely want to add that into your list. Okay, so we kind of have a couple here, right? Gold, S&P, Aussie yen, pound Australia. BTC tag our target very nicely. Okay, so of course right now you don't want to be buying too aggressively, but we're definitely bullish, right? There's no reason to be selling this. The only thing you want to be waiting for is, of course, you know, if you kind of miss this push up, okay, there are a couple of, you know, shorter term opportunities like here on the H1, you can jump in and things. If you miss it, don't rush into things. Wait for it to complete, and likely it's going to do some kind of a pullback. Okay, and if you get that, then of course that will be a buy opportunity again. Okay, so if you don't have a buy trade, don't rush things in. But of course, if you already have a buy trade, then you know you can see here. My suggestion is to probably shift stops to break even or trail stops accordingly, right? If you are longer term investing into, you know, Bitcoin, for example, then of course definitely shift your stops, trail it. You know, you can expect a little bit of a pullback, and then you just trade the continuation back to the upside. Okay. Going to the higher time frame, of course, this can bring you pretty much back to the previous top around like 31,600 ish. Currently, we're trading around like 28,800, right? So there's definitely still a lot of upside potential that you can capitalize on. Right? Yeah, so those are the few things to note. Okay, some of the major indices, right? So Hang Seng over here, we kind of tag the key zone quite nicely as of late last week. Okay, can't put this here. We do have this little trend line as a visual reference guide. So if we can get a corrective pullback here, maybe on a H1, then I think this week would be a potential buy trade opportunity for Hang Seng. Okay, and of course that will bring you back to a primary target at the previous high at 18875, you know, depending on how you want to round it up. So yeah, go down to the hourly. You have your first move down. Okay, you can wait for a second, wait for a third. That would be a valid buy trade. Right, so that's on Hang Seng. German VAX, nothing there. Would see probably a little bit more downside here. Okay, this entire piece looks pretty corrective as a whole. So yeah, you probably want to just be patient, and you know it's likely going to chop around a little bit. And once it enters into this territory, you can look out for H1 crawl. And if you get a H1 crawl, then yeah, that will be a buy opportunity on that, right? But you need to give it time, right? Because you want this to come down slow. You don't want it to go down too fast. Okay. Australian market, not really ideal over there. Okay. So last week, I don't think it's on Monday, right? It was another sharing that we did, and then we'll look at the hourly there. Okay, we're saying that if you can get an impulsive move and break above that structure, we can get a buy. So of course the market didn't really give you that, right? So some things to note, right? I mean, if you take a look at that break, okay, one little technique over here is you need to be aware, okay? When you enter a trade, it's not the end of the trade, okay? You want to still manage it until you close the trade out of it, okay? So last week on Friday, we got involved in a short-term dollar CAD sell as well, right? And of course, kind of update the traders. Remember to shift stops to break even, okay? And of course, that trade end up a break even, right? But if you did not manage the trade, it would result in a unnecessary loss, okay? So you need to be aware that management of trades are equally important as the execution of it, okay? So you need to again be very clear, you know, when you enter a trade, what do you want to see? Okay, of course, whenever we look at this structure here and we get involved in the buy breakout, we want to see an impulsive break. Okay, now if let's say you get involved in a trade like that, you know, on this Australian index, right? If you trade it, if you get involved in a trade like that and you see the market develop, okay, it doesn't really go, you know, it doesn't really go much. You know, it takes some time. This is on the hourly, right? So it can take about half a day. Okay, index are not 24 hours, so this length here is probably about half a day, and you realize that, oh, after a breakout it doesn't really take off, it doesn't go impulsively, you know, it doesn't take off like that. You may want to consider, you know, to just take the trades off, you know, or even shift stops to break even. But in this case here, because it's so close to your entry, you probably just, you know, close it off with whatever tiny profits or maybe tiny loss or even break even, okay? Because that's not what you want when you trigger a trade, right? So again, you need to have that clarity, like what you need to see to pull the trigger and what you need to see after you enter a trade, right? So you need to be like visualize, okay, what is the ideal setup, what's the ideal condition for your trade to play out with high probability, right? If you don't get it, then you need to very quickly step in, manage the trade accordingly, right? So of course, this trade here, if you manage to manage, if you can't manage it, you probably get break even, right? If you did not, then of course that would probably hit your stop anyway. Okay, so for the update of this, probably nothing much you want to be focusing now, okay? Because we did not get that impulsive break, right? Ideally, what we're looking at was this is the correction done, okay, and we want to see an impulsive break to make sure that, you know, give us clue that that's the low. We did not get it, right? So there's a good chance this may continue to drop a little bit more. maybe form a bigger crawl here, right? So we just give it time. Okay, so nothing much on that. Kind of cover most of the index. Did I miss out anything? Nikkei. Okay, nothing much on Nikkei, right? So yeah, those are the index. Okay, good one. AJ can complete the cup and handle. Yeah, potentially. Okay, potentially. I mean, you probably see something like that, right? Yeah, right. So the thing here is I always have a more conservative target first. Okay. And if let's say price is able to meet the objective of the target and show us that there's a good sign that it will continue, then of course you may look to re-enter, and or you can exit your partial and your first take profit area, and then look to manage your other remaining parts of the trade, right? So it's always good to have like the initial target, right? A target that's easier to hit first. Okay. Then you go for extended targets after that, right? So of course, that's where I'm looking at for Australia yen, right? Okay. In terms of like Euro odd, this is what we did, I think, last week. So if I take away that 100% because the market came down to the 123, which is perfectly fine. We can get a very nice little reaction there. Okay, so there's a good chance again, if you can get a corrective pullback, usually in 3, okay, and something like that, right? Okay, so you want to wait for that corrective pullback, then you would have a setup, right? So basically impulse correction, then that's your buy trade setup, right? Short term, again, primary objective. Can this go further? The answer is probably, right? So the idea is you have your first target, you may take partial profits, you may get out of your first trade in profit, and then if it gives you a probability of going higher, you look for re-entry, or you can look for scale in. Okay, so that's the take on Euro odd. EuroCAD is the same, okay, basically. Yeah. Okay, so Euro odd, EuroCAD, the analysis is generally the same. Okay, the pattern that's developing is likely the same as well. So wait for correction, pullback, look for the upside. Right? So I think Euro or EuroCAD, if you're trading this two pair this week, definitely you want to pay a little bit more attention to that. Okay. Cat franc, dollar franc. Okay, cat franc, we have an impulsive move down, right? So we have a V. So if you can get a correction here, that will be a sell. And of course, your primary objective is simple. You just take a 50% mark from the obvious low to the obvious high. Oftentimes, we see the market react around there. Okay, so correction on cat franc will give you the sell opportunity to the downside, right? Somewhere target around 6640. Dollar Canadian, dollar franc, if you're looking at it, there is an opportunity as well on the hourly. Okay, so we are right now looking at a potential three-wave move, right? So the H4 is not as clear, right? The H4 is basically just a little bit of a move here. So you gain a little bit more clarity on the H1. Okay, and you can use a little bit of a fib over here to give you the area of interest. We're basically getting close to it. So you can look up for a H1 crawl. Okay, so what's a H1 crawl? Again, ideally this should go slow. And if you can get that, then that will be a decent sell trade to the downside, right? total. That's one. Okay. Yeah, so something like that would do. Right. Okay, so that's on dollar franc. Okay. Again, if you're trading on this pair, I think short term, this week you may get an opportunity to sell. Right. You can focus a little bit on that. Dow Jones. I think last week we did cover, right? There might be an opportunity for this to come down. We kind of tag the area already right now. Okay, so this kind of complete a true wave move, right? So just be patient, see how the market is going to react off this area. Okay, so if you get a crawl here, okay, that would be a decent buy. If not, then you want to wait for an impulse move, wait for a correction, and then that will be also a buy. Which I think this looks very similar, right? I mean, there's some similarities with S&P, but S&P has already have some reaction. Dow Jones here, just tagging it, right? So just give it a little bit more time and see how it's going to react from this area. Okay. Okay, the cat instruments, right? They're basically moving impulsively now, right? So quite straightforward. If you get an impulse move, just wait for a correction. You get one more move down, right? So generally, the cat is weakening, right? We look at dollar cat, we look at cat yen. I mean, if you look at Aussie cat, it's the same, right? Cat is weakening. You get this move, wait for a correction, you get a move back, one more upside, right? Okay, so I think the cat related quite similar, right? You're riding on Canadian weakness for the week. Okay, yeah. Okay, last one I see here, Pound Australia, 30-minute time frame. Okay, I wouldn't look at this as a 5-wave structure, to be honest, right? This 5-wave here is not the ideal structure, okay? The reason is because wave 3, okay, few conditions, right? Wave 3 in Elliott Wave Principle cannot be the shortest, right? If you just kind of look at this here, wave 3 kind of similar to wave 1, right? I mean, if you do a quick measurement on that, it's almost equal in length, okay? So I don't like to see, I wouldn't put a label of a 5-wave structure when, you know, wave 3 is not obviously the longest one, okay? But what can happen over here is, you know, on the lower time frame, this may just be a very simple true wave move. Again, what we can see over here, this may come back a little bit deeper, okay, to kind of reset this true wave move and then another move back up, right? So we're looking at bullishness, okay? I think we established that on a higher time frame just now as well, right? We're looking at bullishness, that's for sure, okay? But again, you want, you know, going down to the 30-minute time frame, you don't want to be overly aggressive and, you know, jump into a buy on this, right? My take is, if this is going to be a true wave move, the pullback, often you want to be patient and wait for it to come back nearer, you know, something like that, towards the 50%, and then only you look for the buy. Okay, I think like that, this setup will be something that I'm more interested in. Okay, and I seldom go to the 30-minute, right? But on the, I mentioned here, right, on hourly, if you can get this, which is basically what I've just illustrated on a 30-minute just now anyway, definitely outside, right? Yeah, so yeah, hope that gives you some ideas on things. Good. Yeah, so that's all from me for today over here. Okay, sorry. Quick closing. Okay, not sure how many of you are aware that we do have a PAM account, right? So basically, you have this opportunity where you can leverage on the EAs that I have, right? Basically trade automation, and then you'll be able to copy those trades along the way. So I'll just very quickly show you the recent performance that we have. Okay, this PAM account started back in May this year. We just concluded September with a 3.48% ROI. Okay, that means the profit was 3.48%. Now, for those of you who are interested to understand a little bit more about this, or you like to get started and copy the trades from this account, there is a link that you can click. If you're watching on Zoom, okay, you can click on the WhatsApp link. If you're watching it on YouTube, you can scroll down a little bit in the description box below. Okay, that is a link to a WhatsApp. Okay, you click on that, it will direct you to WhatsApp, and you can then reach out to the team from Everything Trading. Okay, and just tell them, okay, I'm interested in the PAM. If you have any questions, feel free to let them know. They'll be able to assist you on that, right? And if you're ready to join, okay, to copy some of the performance and the trades that we take on this account, then you can get started, right? They'll guide you on how to get started as well. Okay, so just want to quickly update you guys on that. We'll probably do this on a week-to-week basis to update you as well, so that you can see the performance over here. This is all very transparent, right? Yeah, so far we don't have, right now we don't have any trades, right? But you can see all the trades that were taken over there. Okay, so yeah, that's all from me for today's session over here. Okay, all the best to your trading week, and we'll see you guys next Monday. Okay, so see you guys. Bye bye.